The Mexican Yucatan Peninsula is full of impressive geological landmarks. Just think of the Chicxulub crater, where scientists believe an asteroid about 6 miles wide slammed into Earth some 66.5 million years ago. The peninsula's nature is just as breathtaking. It's home to a huge number of endemic animals and plants, meaning species you won't find anywhere else on the planet. But if we're talking about major infrastructure projects that are definitely needed to help this place grow, the peninsula hasn't seen any of those in a really long time. But just recently, things took a turn. The Mexican government started developing a hugely strategic peninsula, which led to a plan to dredge around 353 million cubic feet of soil from the bottom of the Gulf of America. Cutting-edge machinery is already at work around the clock, and the project is set to receive between $350 and $500 million in funding. So what's going on there? That's exactly what we're going to figure out today. Trade between the U.S. and Mexico in 2024 hit an all-time high. Total two-way trade reached a record $840 billion, making Mexico the U.S.'s largest trading partner for the second year in a row. At the same time, Mexico exports to the U.S. rose by 6% from 2023 to $506 billion, while U.S. exports to Mexico grew by 3% to $334 billion. The top categories of Mexican exports to the U.S. are cars and car parts, electronic devices, agricultural goods, and petroleum products. In return, the U.S. supplies motor vehicles and their parts, electrical equipment, chemicals, and oil drilling equipment. At the same time, a big share of trade is carried out using water transport, container ships. What's more, right now countries are trying to use one of the most efficient options available, post-Panamax vessels. Typical container ships of this class can be over 964 feet, and their width exceeds 106 feet. As for capacity, they can carry from 5,000 to more than 14,500 TEU or 20-foot containers, and some of the largest ones can move over 24,000 TEU. And everything would be fine, but many Mexican ports can't handle ships like that. Massive post-Panamax container vessels need a depth of more than 39 feet depending on their draft. According to the U.S. International Trade Administration, Mexico has 102 ports along 7,146 miles of coastline, but only 6 of them are modern and capable of handling the largest post-Panamax vessels. And one area feels it the most, the Yucatan Peninsula. It's really important for trade with the U.S. because from there you could send post-Panamax ships to Florida's ports and back, and there's even the port of Progresso, which is perfect thanks to its location. One of the most remarkable features of Progresso is its unique pier, which is considered the longest in the world, stretching about 4 miles deep into the bay. This unusual length is due to the very shallow seafloor near the coast, which requires going far out from the shore to reach depths deep enough for ships. The pier, built in the late 1930s and then actively extended in the 1980s, is a true engineering marvel that provides access to deep water areas. Today, Progresso is the key link in international trade, connecting the Yucatan Peninsula with the U.S., especially Florida, Europe, and the Caribbean countries. It serves as the main container terminal in the region, crucial for local textile and assembly industries that export goods to various markets. The port's also equipped with specialized terminals for handling bulk and loose cargo, including grains, in this area. It ranks in the top 5 by throughput capacity across all of Mexico. On top of that, petroleum products sold by the state company Pemex pass through Progresso. Internal transport links with the city of Mérida and the rest of Mexico allow for efficient distribution of cargo overland, making Progresso an indispensable part of regional and national logistics. Besides, Progresso's a popular spot for cruise ships and ferries, drawing thousands of tourists every year who want to explore the cultural and natural sights of the Yucatan. Sounds great, but with one big catch. With the current fairway depth at 40 feet, Progresso can handle ships with a draft over 32 feet. And when you add the shipping channel width of 492 feet, it turns out that big container ships can't really maneuver properly. This limits the entry of post-Panamax ships into the port and forces cargo owners to reroute container ships from Florida to Veracruz, then transfer them onto barges, smaller river vessels, or even send them overland. As a result, logistics get stretched by 12 to 18 hours and costs go up. Of course, we weren't the only ones to notice. Mexico definitely knows that trade with the U.S. would be way more efficient if they could handle big container ships from Florida right at Yucatan. Actually, that's exactly what the Mexicans got busy with in 2024, upgrading the port of Progresso with costs estimated from $350 to $540 million. To carry out the modernization, Mexico planned to do the most important thing, to carry out dredging works. For this, in April 2025, the Yucatan authorities announced a tender which included one very important statement showing the scale of the work. About 353 million cubic feet of soil must be removed from the port area. To get this job done, a contractor has already been hired. Mexicana de Dragados, a branch of the well-known Belgian Jan Del Nul Group, well-known in dredging and port circles. According to the contract, the dredging work kicked off on June 19, 2025, when specialized vessels started gathering on site. Trailing suction hopper dredgers like the TSHD type, these are actively used by Jan Del Nul. A vessel of this type is self-propelled and can move across the water area, dragging along one or two suction pipes on a seabed. At the end of these pipes are special nozzles that collect loose sediment materials like sand, silt, or fine gravel. Powerful pumps suck up the mix of water and soil, which is then sent into the ship's huge hold called the hopper. After it's filled, the dredger moves to the unloading spot where the collected material can be dumped through bottom hatches or pumped ashore via pipeline to create new land. These dredgers are perfect for working over large areas with soft soils and out to sea without causing much disruption to other marine traffic. Another type of dredging vessel that got to work is the cutter suction dredger. If the previous machine was kind of like a vacuum cleaner, then here we have, let's say, an underwater excavator. A cutter suction dredger usually stays still while working, anchoring itself to the bottom with special support piles. At the end of its suction pipe, there's a rotating cutting tool, the cutter head. This cutter is meant to break up and loosen tougher soils, including compacted sand, dense clay, and even soft rock that other dredgers can't handle effectively. This loosened material is then sucked up by pumps and constantly pumped through a floating pipeline directly to the shore or onto barges for further transport. Cutter suction dredgers are known for their high precision and ability to create channels and basins with specified depth and shape. The plan is for dredging to go on for a year. Exactly during this period, the main targets will be met, the depth will be raised from 40 to 44 feet, and the navigation channel will be expanded from 492 to 590 feet. Where will all the material dredged from the bottom go? You can't be sure it won't just be dumped somewhere for no reason. The silt and everything else are already being used to achieve another important goal of the project. The soil taken out during dredging is used to create two artificial platforms, each covering 99 acres. Once all the embankment work is done, warehouse storage will be constructed on the platforms, along with bulk cargo handling areas and a spot for setting up heavy-duty cranes, plus quay walls and access paths for moving equipment up and down and for vehicles to get in. In general, the plan is to do everything needed to set up specialized terminals for containers, grain, petrochemicals, bulk mineral cargo, cars, liquefied oil and natural gas, as well as for a ship repair center. According to the Construction Industry Association, CMIC, as part of the preparations for the expansion, a road covering more than 53,800 square feet has also been laid out to connect the port's existing long viaduct with the northeast edge of one of the platforms in order to ease traffic inside this area and speed up the shipment of large cargo batches. Naturally, the waves will be a problem for everything that's been built, but they haven't been overlooked. The plan includes building an eastern breakwater that'll calm the sea's rage enough so that the waves won't harm the new facilities or even disrupt the work of the modernized port. It's expected that the first containers will be able to pass through the new terminals by the end of 2026. That is, the work's moving so fast that they plan to finish everything in less than 2 years. The modernization of the Port of Progresso will open up a whole range of new opportunities for the Yucatan region and for all of Mexico. First of all, increasing the depth and width of the access channel will make it possible to receive large modern post-Panamax container ships with a draft of up to 39 feet, which will sharply reduce the need to reroute cargo, for example, from Florida to neighboring ports and transfer it onto barges. This, in turn, will cut delivery times and lower logistics costs. For local producers and exporters, this means more predictable delivery times and better rates, which in turn boost their competitiveness on the global market. However, it's worth saying right away that even after the upgrade, Progresso won't be a port capable of handling absolutely all of the largest container ships. There will still be some limitations, but the situation will be much better than it was before. The expansion of port infrastructure and the addition of new container, grain, petrochemical, and other terminals will make it possible to handle more cargo at once and broaden the port's specialization. For example, set up a separate terminal for liquefied gas or vehicles, which previously required investments in other regions. New warehouses and transshipment zones will allow goods to be unloaded and stored right at the quay, cutting port internal transport to a minimum and speeding up the entire operation. Besides, linking the port with highways will boost domestic logistics. Cargo will reach Merida, Cancun, and other key spots in Yucatan faster and at a lower cost, and will also move further on in transit to the country's central states. This will open access to new markets and attract investments into the region's industry and agriculture. And let's not forget that everything built needs to be maintained. The logical outcome, thanks to the modernization, thousands of new jobs will show up in and around the port, from crane operators and logistics pros to tech maintenance teams and environmental monitoring specialists. Taking all these factors into account, the modernization of Progresso will become a powerful driver of economic growth. The port's trade turnover could double within 5 years after the work is completed, and the extra tax revenues will allow the government to invest more in social and infrastructure projects. Boosting capacity will help Mexico solidify its role as a key trading partner of the U.S., especially Florida, and build strategic corridors for deliveries to countries in Central and South America. Over time, the port will become more than just a cargo handling spot. It'll turn into a modern logistics hub that can ensure steady growth and well-being for the entire region. And here it should be said that the port modernization, including dredging works, is always a big threat to many organisms living in local waters. That's why people ask, will anything be done within the project to minimize these risks? Of course. All the improvement work at Progresso comes with a mandatory environmental impact manifest, which includes a full set of measures to prevent and ease the effects of dredging. The document provides for the use of sediment screens and barriers to hold back suspended particles so as to prevent clouding of coastal waters and the death of plankton and mollusks. Regular monitoring of solid particles and the water's oxygen levels will also be carried out, and strict limits on working times will be set in fish spawning and sea turtle breeding areas. Moreover, the project is supported by programs for compensatory planting of mangrove thickets and restoring coastal ecosystems in areas where the seabed is being developed, which helps preserve the local water's biodiversity and minimize shoreline erosion. Local environmentalists and community groups have repeatedly pointed out to the authorities the need for more detailed technical and environmental studies before and after the work. Some news reports note that despite assurances of minimal impact, there should be an additional assessment of the cost to the coastal fishermen's feeding grounds, possible shifts in bottom-dwelling communities, and effects on coastal algae. In response to this, the project includes mandatory independent environmental audits and the establishment of an eco-lab at the local university, where water and soil samples will be regularly tested, reports published, and if needed, adjustments made to the dredging technology. Together, these measures aim to strike a balance between the project's economic benefits and preserving the fragile ecosystems of the Gulf of America. One more key decision of the modernization project is that they plan to link the port with Tren Maya, one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects in Mexico, and this link will offer a huge number of advantages. This is a 965-mile railway project aimed at connecting 5 Mexican states, Chiapas, Tabasco, Campeche, Yucatan, and Quintana Roo, into a single passenger and freight network. The idea of creating the train of the future was announced in 2018 by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador and quickly gained support at both the federal and regional levels. Construction kicked off in June 2020, and the first stretch of the route between San Francisco Calquini and Cancun officially opened on December 15, 2023. Over the year, new segments rolled out, and by December 15, 2024, the main loop was complete, covering all the key spots from Palenque to Chetumal. The Tren Maya route includes 34 stations, 20 of which are large and 14 small. It has 3 main routes, Golfo, Selva, and Caribe, plus 2 branches that will eventually form a full network with branch lengths of up to 994 miles. Trains run daily, with passenger services running every 4 to 6 hours. The project's rolling stock consists of 42 modern diesel-electric trains built by Alstom. Each train can carry up to 430 passengers and is equipped with air conditioning, information displays, and areas for passengers with reduced mobility. The project's designed to carry up to 25 million passengers a year. On some sections like Mérida, Cancun, Chetumal, 2 tracks have been laid to increase service frequency, and in the Palenque-Mérida-Cancun area, there's even a 3rd track for overtaking and sorting trains. The stats from the first year showed an average daily ridership of around 2,000 people per train, and the total number of passengers carried topped 705,000. Yes, that's still a long way from the maximum of 25 million passengers, but the line hasn't been fully completed yet. Once it's up and running, the number of people traveling with Tren Maya could increase significantly. During the construction of the Tren Maya project, special attention's being paid to sustainable development and minimizing environmental damage. Before the work began, Mexico's Ministry of the Environment carried out an inventory of flora and fauna along the route, relocating rare species to nature reserves. Of course, there were some problems here too, but with a relatively positive outcome. For example, on the most sensitive 68-mile stretch, more than 2.2 million trees had to be relocated, which sparked protests from environmentalists and indigenous communities. In response, the route was adjusted several times, and mandatory water quality monitoring and ground sonar checks were introduced when earth-moving equipment was operating. In other words, the Tren Maya contractors and designers are showing flexibility and are ready to address conflicts. All in all, that's a serious project with a serious approach. However, right now, we're especially interested in the link between Tren Maya and the modernization of the Progresso port, and that link really does exist. Since mid-2024, a cargo division has been added to the project. And on top of that, engineers have started rebuilding and laying about 43 miles of track from Mérida to the port of Progresso, so that by the end of 2026, they can launch the first phase of freight operations. The cargo network will include 4 main multimodal terminals in Palenque, Poxila, Progresso, and Cancun, where containers and bulk cargo can be transferred directly from ships to trains and back. For cargo operations in Progresso, there are plans to build a modern multimodal hub with rail lines reaching directly to the piers of the new terminals. After the dredging work's done and the fairway is widened, post-Panamax ships will be able to unload their cargo straight onto rail cars without using barges, which will cut both time and shipping costs by a lot. It's estimated that the ship-to-train system will reduce logistics expenses by 15 to 20% and nearly halve delivery times to the central states of Mexico and the U.S. In general, the modernization of Progresso isn't some last-minute project that wasn't thought through. It fully matches the direction Mexico's currently taking on the Yucatan Peninsula, a well-rounded development that benefits pretty much everyone.